What is going on, you guys? Today I have another video review for you. This one is from Austin Holloman, and the title is He Left the United States Forever, and Here's Why. Let's get into it. By the way, the title of this video is a joke. You're going to find out why these people love living in this place.
So guys, it is now officially 3 years I have been living outside the United States, which is actually ironic because it feels like just yesterday I made this video about 2 years of me living abroad, how I feel. And now I'm telling you guys 3 years outside the United States, 1 year in Kenya, and I still feel exactly the same way, if not better, than when I got here last August 2024. So today I'm gonna break down exactly what it feels like to live outside the United States for 3 years, with people that want to move out of the United States, with people that are seeing a civil war that may come in the United States soon, or people that are seeing how their rights are starting to be they're trying to strip away American rights like freedom of speech slowly and invasion of privacy. And if you guys want to get away from that, the best way to do it is not trying to be Martin Luther King, but actually separating yourself from the problem unless you feel like sacrificing yourself. So I'm Austin Holland. Make sure you guys like the video, subscribe. Let's get into it. Now, for the first point, a lot of people are worried about the cost of living when it comes to living abroad. A lot of you guys do not have enough money to move to a place like Switzerland. A lot of you guys do not have enough money to move to a place like Spain or any other country in the world that may be, or let's say, for example, in England, Americans usually lose about 30% of their purchasing power whenever they go to England. So yes, if you make 100,000 US dollars, if you move to London, it's going to feel like you're making 70,000. Not too bad, but it is bad. Now, on the flip side, if you would have come to somewhere like Paraguay, Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda, and specifically where I'm at right now in Nairobi, Kenya, it literally is multiplying my purchase power by 4. So just keep that in mind. For example, this apartment that I'm in right now is about 750 US dollars in a prime side of town.
Okay, $750 in a prime side of town. So let's add to that list that he mentioned, by the way. Different places in Latin America, like Colombia, maybe Brazil, or Southeast Asia, right? Like Indonesia, Malaysia, Vietnam, Philippines, what else? Thailand. Definitely a lot of places with similar prices. Because $750 for like a prime location in downtown, I mean, that's pretty reasonable, I'd say.
If I was it's a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom, first person to live in it. Now, if I was in Dallas, in prime side, let's say Knox Henderson, I was living off 75 and 4s, but Knox Henderson, this exact same apartment would be around $4,000 per month, if not more. If it's brand new 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom in Knox Henderson, you're going to pay around $4,000 a month to be on that side of town. So you do divide your cost of living by 4 if you move to the right country. I had a root canal recently that I had to get here in Nairobi, and I paid about $200 for the entire process to get the root canal cleaned and taken out and everything that they do to do that. In Dallas, the exact same procedure for 1 tooth on a root canal would literally have been $1,200.
Yeah, so $1,200 in the US versus $200 in Kenya. And that would be the same if you went to any of those places that I mentioned to you earlier, especially like in Southeast Asia. I can't really speak on Latin America too much there, but they have similar prices with rent and food. So you're 4xing your purchasing power. And then he also mentioned that he had a 2-bedroom in a prime location. So he doesn't need the 2-bedroom. He could have a 1-bedroom, which would bring that 750 down, maybe, I don't know, to 450, 500.
So besides dating, women, political situations, cost of living should be one of your biggest factors whenever you're considering moving to another country. Now, I will say this, the United States is pretty much the only country I've been to. I've been to 28 countries around the world and 4 continents. The United States is pretty much, well, I've been to 5 continents. The United States is pretty much the only country in the world where you can literally go bankrupt from breaking your finger. Not many other countries are like that around the world. And some people might say, oh, well, it's because, your purchasing power, multiplies by 4. No. In the United States, it literally is overpriced. It doesn't matter how much your purchasing power goes up in these other countries. The United States is literally overpriced. And to sum up the cost of living portion of this video, when I was living in Dallas for a 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom apartment off of 75 and 4s, which is really on the good side of 75, on the west side of 75 and 4s, which was really, we still had break-ins going on in the parking lot, and it was literally costing me about $3,000 to $4,000 a month. Let's say around $3,500 a month to live, and I still had break-ins and homeless people standing at the stairwell screaming because they're high on fentanyl. That was for $3,500 to $4,000 a month. For $4,000 a month here in Kenya, I literally would only be spending $1,200 on survival costs, and I would have another $2,800 in additional expenses that I want to go drink, smoke cigars, save money, whatever I want to do, I would have that additional money. And that goes a long way being here in Kenya. Now, the next point that a lot of people don't really seem to fathom, especially when moving to developing nations like Kenya, is the sense of freedom. A lot of you guys look at the protests that go on here in Nairobi and you guys will think that, oh, like it's just smoke all in the air and it's so politically tense. And I'm not saying that it's not, but I can tell you political tension is way more common in the United States than it is here in a place like Kenya or in a place like South Africa. Yes, every country has political instability to some sort of degree. But from my understanding, you can correct me if I'm wrong, there is no right wing. And yes, there are terrorists throughout Africa and stuff like that, but there is no equivalent to MAGA running around shooting people the same way that they would do in the States. Or there's no overt racism towards black people, especially because, for obvious reasons, and even not towards white people. Yes, white people can have a disadvantage just because of their skin color being here in Africa, but you don't have to worry about it the same way you would in the States. In addition to that, there is always a slower pace of life in developing countries, and that can work for you or against you. Yes, we are used to everything being fast in places in the United States or any other Western country like Canada or England. We are used to things being fast and instant, but you don't realize subconsciously that always puts you under pressure on a day-to-day basis and keeps you stressed out. Versus things here are pretty much, they happen when they happen. Now, Kenya is a little closer to America with the timeliness of things. I think South Africa, they take time a little more serious than they do in Kenya. But for the majority of the developing world, everything is slower paced, which allows you to relax a lot more often. There's no pressure that's constantly dangling over your head. For example, I'm not bragging, I'm not recommending anybody do this, but whenever we have get-togethers, or if we have a business meeting here in Kenya, if I'm 2 minutes late, I don't have to worry about the other person rescheduling because I didn't show up 30 seconds earlier than we were supposed to. For example, when I first started watching Patrick Bet-David, you guys know him from Valuetainment, he literally said that he had a meeting and the assistant called Patrick and said, hey, can you just hold on a second? He's ready. He was just wrapping up. He used the bathroom or something. He's running 2 minutes late. So Patrick said, no, cancel the meeting. We need to reschedule for tomorrow. Hang up the meeting. So now they had to redo all this all over again. And yes, I understand he's trying to teach the man to take his time seriously, but I mean, damn. That stuff doesn't stop with just business. That's literally every aspect of life in the United States. Everything is under pressure. Now, one thing that people have known, especially since I came back to Kenya, is my educational and my maturity has grown a lot from being outside the United States. First point I believe that is because the United States is an individualistic culture. We don't want to sit next to each other to eat lunch. We don't have nothing to say to each other. Let's hang out today. Oh, no, I'm busy. Oh, no, I got to do this. Or people don't really interact with each other the same way they do in other countries. That's an individualistic country or culture. And in a place like Kenya or Brazil is more collectivist, where people are collected together. Literally what the word is saying, just imagine that, collectivist versus individualistic, one versus many. That being said, the person in the individualistic mentality in that culture of the United States does not get interaction with people. And so for example, some people that can tell you everything about a zebra's DNA and how hot the sun is, and then they don't know that if they flip that light switch on back there, that it'll turn on the lights. That's a person that's book smart and is literally common sense dumb. And there's a lot of people like that in the United States because they don't know how to interact with people because they don't do it enough. So if you guys have met, so I'm 26 years old. If I meet a 26-year-old from the United States, he has a maturity of a 16-year-old. Whatever age that person is in the United States, subtract 10 years. So yes, I'm not even being funny. If they're 17 years old, they're literally 7 years old in mind. Listen to the things that they say. Versus if you go to other countries, yes, they have more immature young men and women. But overall, they pretty much can fit. If they're 26 in Kenya, at the youngest, they might be 24. They're not going to be 16 years old in the head. And that's because they learn a lot.
Actually, that's a crazy point. I mean, I would say of course, it's not always true, but I think you see it more nowadays, especially with some like Western countries, and I'm not going to get too into that in this, but I've heard people say like 30 is the new 20, right? Or like 35 is the new 25, which is kind of ridiculous because you don't want to be in that situation. What he's saying is that in other countries, people are more mature and more open to having conversations and it not being heated and always being this crazy debate, right? I totally get what he means. And, even like I've watched some videos and I've lived in these places too, right? Like Colombia, or I watched a video of a guy talking about Brazil. Like the people are so open and friendly and kind, and I've experienced that in Southeast Asia as well. So the U.S., for example, can paint a bad perspective of other countries, but they're actually really amazing and definitely worth going to. And the people are super kind and very open minded. Sociable is the point he's making too, right? Like in the US, like people are very like cold, like AirPods in, don't bother me. And it's like they're like a robot, especially after everything closing down for a few years. Basically, people who didn't have that much social ability went even farther down because of that. And so, sure, things are kind of like going back to a little bit of normalcy, but still, I mean, it's kind of surprising. Like, I just a quick example, like, I would love if things like dating apps didn't exist. So people were just more confident and brave to meet people in person. Even like, I have a lot of friends that, in their 30s or so, they go to hiking groups and things like that. I mean, that's so much cooler than just like staying inside on like Discord and Zoom meetings and etc.
More life lessons because they actually interact with people. If you don't believe me, look out in your driveway and see how many kids you see playing outside in Fort Worth, Texas. Probably none. If you look outside the window, I can always hear kids playing. And the thing is, it's very different that the kids actually play here in the middle of the main, not in the road, but they're walking up and down the main road from school, something that we would never see in the United States anymore due to the excessive kidnappings of children. That being said, if you move to a developing country like I have, and I've been in Kenya for a year now, and I spent some time in Paraguay, and I spent a lot of time in Brazil, you will interact with enough people where it will grow your character overall. which is an absolute culture shock. So whenever I go back to the United States, I went back in April 2024. I had grown so much mentally that I was literally disconnected from the people where it wasn't really anything to talk to them about, family members and friends. Now, what a lot of people don't really consider whenever they move abroad or they don't fully understand is the actual opportunities to make money. Yes, starting a business in a place like Africa or Brazil or even Eastern Europe or Southeast Asia has a far less overhead for obvious reasons because of the currency conversion and there not being so many hidden fees and taxes on everything, that with a smaller amount of money, $5,000, $3,000, depending on what business you're getting in, you can actually flip that to 10 to 15 times more. Now, this is not a get rich quick scheme. I'm just saying that there's a lower startup cost to open up a barbershop in Uganda than it is in Dallas. And I'm telling you that from experience because I had a barbershop in Dallas. And this is one of the importance of me making these kind of videos and actually connecting with people that actually do live abroad that can tell you firsthand what I see on a daily basis, which is why we do courses for import, export, how to market in another country, how to do agriculture in a place like Kenya, grow coffee beans, how to export those back to the States, how to import your service or business into Kenya so it can thrive here as well and still have it in the States or completely relocate. And I'll have that linked in the first pinned comment in the description if you want to buy our import, export course below. Now, there are so many things that are not here in Kenya. I've been in Kenya for 13 months, and literally I did not find single bag popcorn. I can only find the bag of popcorn seeds that you had to pop and you got to put your own butter and everything on it yourself, old school way. I cannot find the bag popcorn that we have in the States that you pop in the microwave and it already has salt and butter on it and it's very convenient. I didn't find those until 10 months of me being here. And I don't know if somebody's watching my video or not, but I was like, wow, I've been looking for this for a while and I've only seen it at one store. And that store was Carrefour. And only at that Carrefour could I find it. I went to every other Carrefour in the city, and I still only seen it at that one, which means there's not a surplus of it. Some of you guys wouldn't think about that stuff, but that stuff is an opportunity here. So there are things that are missing in places like Kenya and Brazil. For maybe it might be a political reason through taxes and tariffs and stuff like that, but there are things missing that you are not thinking about that we have on a day-to-day basis, such as single ice cream cups. They only have the big tubs here. They don't have single ice cream cups. And again, I worked with Kevin to bring this course to you guys so you guys can learn exactly what you need to know, and that'll be linked in the first pinned comment, as I said before. And another way, personally, how I do this is I have 5 Kenyans that work for me. One runs my website, one does my tourism for clients, another one does my calls, another one edits my videos. And then we also have a driver that drives around our clients whenever they come into town. That is a far less overhead cost. Even if you're paying them 20% of what you make off of a consultation call, is far lower than what it would cost in the United States. And what this does is this allows me to provide opportunities for the locals so I can actually make an impact while removing some of the work for myself so I can stay more productive. Now that can be good and bad. If you have money laying around and you have a lot of free time, focusing becomes a lot harder. So make sure you keep that in mind. Now, this is the number one factor that actually caused me to move out of the United States, and it has evolved since then, but dating. Dealing with women in other countries is completely different. As I said before, the United States has an individualistic and other countries has a collectivist mindset. The individualistic women, the women from those cultures, they don't the same way, they only thinking about themselves, okay? And the men might be doing that as well. I don't know, I don't date men. But I'm telling you, the women do that the exact same way, and you're not really considered. Everything is me, me, me. Not to mention, a lot of these cultures still have a very traditional mindset where you pay the bill. Even here in Kenya, you had to pay a dowry to marry a chick. And also being a foreigner, dating can work for you and work against you. Yes, when you go to a place like Mozambique or even Kenya and you're a black American, I don't want to speak for white Americans, I'm not white, but if you're a black American, the interest level goes a lot higher. And some people may say it's for money. I don't know. I only pay for dinner and an Uber, but some people may say it's for money. I'm not out here getting begged for money all the time. Now, it can work against you because there are some chicks that will target you just strictly for financial gain or even to rob you. Now, I'm not saying that happens here in Kenya because that's more of a South American thing to be robbed and killed by women you're sexually interested in. But just know that when you leave the United States, the level of respect that women give to men is life-changing. Like, it made me cry the first time when I was in Brazil and I experienced it because I couldn't believe it. And again, some of you guys may say there's a motive. I really don't give a damn. I just know that it's happening in these other places and it wasn't happening there. And there's a lot of things that us foreigners, especially here in Africa, that we do that is just basic. You know, I don't really think I'm doing nothing that is such a big deal to women in other countries.
Well, that's huge, obviously. Like, having that extra level of respect towards each other makes the relationship so much better. So this other point that he's making is really big. And I should just go ahead and address it because obviously, like, you'll see in the comment sections, like, people like complaining, and really it's because they're too scared to try, right? They'll say, "Oh, she just wants your green card. Oh, they're all gold diggers, over there." And here's the thing, right? If you don't know what you're doing with women in dating, it's easy to get taken advantage of anywhere in the world. If you've never been out of your country, let's say you're in the US, right? If you don't know what you're doing with women, and then you follow, let's say, like the focus on yourself king advice, right? And you think that once you're in shape and once you have all the money in the world, that she'll love you. Women will just flock to you. It'll be for the wrong reasons, because oftentimes you need that inner confidence as well to be able to handle those situations. You need to know how to act, how to identify, good traits and traits that are not long-term relationship material in women, so you can avoid the situations, because you can have gold diggers in the states or whatever Western country, for example. So don't go putting that on another country.
For example, I remember last year I was dating a chick here in Kenya. And she wasn't Kenyan though, but I've had Kenyan women say this as well. And I remember I was literally wiping the toilet and then I was sweeping and mopping. And she was just like jaw dropping, like, I've never seen a man like clean up and cook the way how you do. And I'm like, well, what the hell are you talking about? Like, this is what I do. But you have to remember in other countries, especially if the women come from good families, they usually have a girl or a guy, no, a girl, they have a woman that will cook and clean for them literally for 200, $300 a month. And so for them to, and they also have gender roles. So these same women would tell me that the men in the house were never allowed to do those things. The sisters of the brothers had to do that. And the mother and the sister brothers or the house help would have to do that. And the men were just expected to protect and provide. And that's what they were being trained to do. But in the United States, we don't really have a family unit anymore. And we have this stupid gender war that's pretty much separating men and women. And I wish people from other parts of the world would be smart enough to see that, because they're literally reiterating the same dumb talking points, bringing in the same mentality over here that's destroyed the United States. I wish they'd be able to see that. And these people actually have a family unit that will actually hold them accountable and teach them these things. Meanwhile, in the United States, you have men and women that grow up in single parent households. So it's not surprising that, yes, you had to do everything on your own, or some of y'all just have dirty rooms because you don't know how to do it at all. That's very unfortunate. But yes, that's the way how things are. Now, some of the negative things that you could run into by living abroad is language barriers, visas. There's some countries where visas, like for example, here in Kenya, the visa is the work permit to stay here is literally going to run you around $2,000. And then you're going to have to maintain that visa with an extra $1,000 per year. And you have to do that every 2 years. So you end up spending $4,000 to get a work visa to stay here, which is very expensive compared to a place like Paraguay and Brazil. $1,500 right after gets you 2 years with a regular temporary residency. Last time I was there when I applied for it. So that being said, you may be finding yourself like people do in Thailand doing visa runs. People do visa runs, jumping to the next country and coming back. They do the same thing here. So that could be an issue. So you need to make sure you do your research on that as well. And there's always bureaucracy. If you are in developing countries, every country has a level of corruption. Donald Trump does stuff that people would call corrupt, but corruption is a lot more in your face, and it's literally at every level in some of these countries. So the United States, if they're corrupt, they get $1 trillion for the military. They're going to spend $995 billion on the military and steal the rest. Or if you go to a country in Africa or South America, they get $1 trillion, they're going to steal $1 trillion. They won't, the military wouldn't even have bullets. So there's a different, that's up there though. But even down to the security guard could be corrupt. You don't know. So those are things that you have to consider as well. But coming from a place where if you have extra cash, usually you're not going to have to worry about those things. But I'm not going to talk about that because I enjoy living in Africa and I don't want to talk about corruption in a country that I'm not from. And another thing you always want to remember, even if the locals tell you that you are one of them now, you still have to take that with a grain of salt because you are still always a foreigner. Some of them may look at you like you really are one of them, but yeah, there's a lot of envy and a lot of them are not going to see you the same, because you may see this, and this is usually why expats coming from America or somewhere in Europe tend to stick together, because sometimes you can't trust the locals, and you have to, you're more likely, sometimes you can't trust the Americans either, but you have to be able to surround yourself with more familiar people. And now some people are concerned about their safety, especially when they're visiting places like Latin America and especially Africa. Whenever I tell people I live in Africa, the first thing they bring up is wandering lions throughout the street, terrorists and insurgencies, and even political instability. Especially when I talk about Kenya, they love to talk about the protests that happen in one side of town that you don't really have a threat of danger unless if you go to those protests. Meanwhile, when George Floyd died in the United States, the entire country in every city was protesting. So that was more dangerous being in those, like, yeah, that's not the same thing. That being said, here in Nairobi, Kenya, I've never felt unsafe at all. Even when I've had altercations here, I still didn't feel unsafe because it's not a dangerous culture being here. You can go to the ATM late at night, obviously not in Kibera, but in most places you can walk around late at night. Maybe not as a woman, but I've seen women walking around late at night, and it's something that you wouldn't see in a place like Sao Paulo. I remember being in Sao Paulo and they're telling me not to stand out on the street because there's bandits outside, essentially. So you need to do your research on where you're going to, but just know that there are some cities in Latin America that are safer than cities in the United States. For example, Montevideo, Uruguay, that's in South America, and Asuncion, Paraguay. I can tell you guys, I've never felt unsafe in any of those cities. And it literally felt safer than when I was in Dallas. Okay, there was no people running up and down the street with their eyes rolled in the back of their head high on fentanyl. There was nobody getting robbed at gunpoint that I ever seen or even heard about when I was in those places. So make sure you do your research on where you're going to. Now, the next thing is your personal health. A lot of people have been telling me that my skin is getting brighter. If you guys can see, I'm actually putting on more muscle weight. I'm getting a lot bigger, and I'm not getting fat because my energy levels are not going down from being overweight. So I'm gaining healthy weight. My skin is getting brighter. My energy levels are better. Whenever I drink the water here and eat the food, it feels better because the stuff is not tainted with chemicals made for people to expand their profits. Medical care is usually going to be more affordable in these places. As I told you guys before about my root canal, I paid $200 for something that would have costed $1,200 in Dallas. The next thing is, I know all the United States is not like this, but I'm from Fort Worth, Texas, and the entire DFW is an entire metroplex that's not walkable. The United States is such a capitalistic place. It's designed for people to buy cars. So they make the cities, most of those cities now, especially the further west you go, are designed for you to drive everywhere. If you want to walk to the nearest grocery store somewhere in Arlington, you're going to be walking like 35, 40 minutes just to get to the new grocery store, which, hey, if you like walking, that's okay. But I know I don't want to walk with a certain amount of groceries that are going to fill up my refrigerator. You're not going to walk with that for 40 minutes. Versus here, everything is a lot more walkable. You can walk to the grocery store in 10 or 15 minutes at the most, and you have more exercise that you get on a daily basis, which overall is better for your health and your mind. And not to mention the expats, the Americans. I know in America, we usually are tense when we're talking amongst ourselves and each other. because of all those things I just listed, we seem a lot happier whenever I meet other Americans in Brazil, in Nairobi, in Bangkok, Thailand, in Vietnam. We seem to be at a lot more of a state of peace. And if you guys would like to join this group of Americans that have gotten away from
Obviously, awesome video, and I think that last point is actually really good too, because there's a lot of places around the world that basically have more walkable cities. You can go get your groceries to the gym, etc. And it's not like in the US where you need to drive 20, 30 plus minutes. Right? Obviously, a long walk, like you said, like 45 minutes, an hour, which is fine if you want to do that, right? But if you're carrying groceries or something like that, it's like you don't want to carry groceries for that long. I mean, that's what you go to the gym for, is doing the farmer's walks. But, if you really want to, of course. But the walkable cities, that's super key. Like, you can obviously get rid of a car, not need a car, and that's one less expense for you to worry about. Anyways, guys, this is a really good video. Go check out Austin Holloman and his channel. Subscribe over here as well. I'm looking to help more people live a life by design, not one that was designed for you. And I'll see you in the next one. Peace.